sick and tired of losing my way. Been in and out of love now for so many times. I can't find a loving woman to stay. But I must be doing something wrong to get in this rut. Yeah, I feel like I'm being abused. Put an ad in the paper as my very last chance to stop myself from getting confused. The ad read, situation big and got a part-time job in my heart. Inquiries are welcome, write a letter and we'll make a start. Don't wanna get involved, hope you'll understand me. I want the capability to be free. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Suppose somehow you must think I'm kinda crazy to think of doing such a deed. But if you felt the way that I do about love, you'd know I'd have to take the lead. But I have to admit it didn't get me too far. I didn't even get one reply. It seems everyone must be awfully contented. Why not me? I'll never understand why. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Inquiries are welcome, write a letter and we'll make a start. Don't wanna get involved, hope you'll understand me. I want the capability to be free. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Feeling pretty lonely at this time of my life, yeah. I'm looking around for something new. I've had my share of loving and also lots of losing. There must be something better to do. Skimming through the paper at the end of the day, I saw a classified I couldn't believe. A lonely young lady who feels a lot like I do had a message that would set me free. A message that would set me free. Her ad read, situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Inquiries are welcome, write a letter and we'll make a start. Don't wanna get involved, hope you'll understand me. I want the capability to be free. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart. Situation's big and got a part-time job in my heart.
Air. Our gifts that we talk, the gifts that we talk about are the way we say thank you to you for your pledge. So if you pledge $30, you can also choose to receive The Films of Bette Davis, a large softbound volume which details the casts and plots of all her films, filled with photographs taken right on the set. Go ahead. Make that pledge. You'll feel better if you do. If you pledge $15, we can send you The Story of the Career of Bette Davis by Whitney Stein, accompanied by a running and witty narrative by Bette Davis. It's a delightful and personal look at Bette Davis, the woman, and Bette Davis, the artist, who has starred in over 80 pictures in a 42-year career. We'll be happy to send you this paperback biography with each $15 pledge. Ken?
Pledge as much as you can afford, $150, $30, or even $15. Look what happened to someone who didn't.
Next, please.
Hi there.
Arthur Good.
That's me.
Let's see, it says here you worked hard.
Very hard.
You were a good husband and father.
Very good.
And you never cheated.
Never.
Except
what?
you watched Masterpiece Theater down there. Your wife watched Evening at Symphony. Your kids watched Sesame Street.
Yeah, but what...
Oh, Arthur, you never helped pay for all those pleasant hours of TV. You watched your public TV station and never became a member. Arthur, you cheated. You're a freeloader.
But I kept meaning to send a check. Can I pay now and get my wings?
I'm sorry, it's too late. It was down there that public TV needed your help.
We know that you mean to make that pledge. Well, our volunteers want to take your pledge. You two groups should get together and do it. It's quite simple. All it takes is a phone call. 744-1300 in Dallas, 263-3151 in the metro area. If you're receiving us by cable or outside the immediate dialing area, call us collect. We'll be happy to accept the charges. The area code is 214, then 744-1300. Remember, you can charge your membership on your MasterCharge or Visa card, but call us. We'll be continuing with Betty Davis films all weekend. Tomorrow night at 9:30, the Betty Davis retrospective continues with Dark Victory at 9:30, and on Sunday night, the blockbuster of them all, the winner of 5 Academy Awards, All About Eve, comes on at 9:15 this Sunday evening. During the entire month of June, such Betty Davis classics as The Letter and Marked Women will also be on. It's all for you right here on Channel 13. But think about it. You can make the difference. You can become the key to our equation for fiscal health. You can become the you in the equation. 50,000 members equals 49,999 people plus one, and that's you. Become one of the 4,000 new members, new memberships that we need during this drive, and please do it now. Ease your conscience and join us guilt-free for a sparkling lineup of programs all during this June drive for fiscal health on Channel 13. We're especially fortunate tonight because the Atlantic Richfield Foundation has agreed to, during this drive, match dollar for dollar every $100 pledge that KERA receives. So if you pledge $100 tonight, you'll be doubling the amount of income that KERA receives just from the simple act of walking over to your telephone and making that all-important membership pledge. But please do it now. If you pledge, as I said, $100 tonight, you get a copy of the New York Atlas Times of the World, published in conjunction with the Times of London. It's a magnificent reference book that you and your family can treasure always, and it's yours for a $100 pledge. A $100 pledge that will be matched by the Atlantic Richfield Foundation, dollar for dollar. As
Who we phone?
This is Sperry for a start.
Who says Dynamo works better than Tide?
I do. I'm such a creature of habit, I'd basically always use Tide until once I had to help Pete pump gas, and I had on my daughter's ski jacket, and it got filthy. I rubbed a little Dynamo into the greasy places out of the quarter cup for a full load, and it came out super. I couldn't believe the difference it made. Now I wash everything in Dynamo.
The little blue jug is Dynamo.
Recommended by women who used to use powders. If you could see bad breath, you'd see something like this.
Ready to celebrate our anniversary?
You're not ready, Larry.
Bad breath.
Bad.
Listerine Antiseptic has the power to change bad breath into clean breath. Listerine kills the germs that can cause bad breath. One taste and you know it's working. There's nothing like that Listerine clean breath feeling.
Now I'm ready.
Happy anniversary, Larry.
Listerine Antiseptic changes bad breath into clean breath.
Ever tasted real barbecue pork chops? Well, I fix them mighty tasty on my grill.
Surprise, Tex. We got 2 ways. Shake and bake barbecue style for pork turns your oven into a barbecue grill. Just shake, no basting. Makes its own tangy, tomatoey barbecue sauce.
Right tasty pork chops, Sue Ann. Moist and tender. It's got that real barbecue flavor.
Turn your oven into a barbecue grill with shake and bake coating mix, barbecue style for pork.
If you suffer pain or itch of hemorrhoidal tissues, use Preparation H for hours of comfort in many cases. When occasional pain, itch, and swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues occur, Preparation H gives prompt temporary relief in many cases. Then Preparation H goes beyond soothing, actually helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues due to inflammation. For temporary relief of hemorrhoid symptoms, get doctor-tested Preparation H. Goes beyond soothing, helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues.
Don't waste your time.
Hey, Shirley, this is Squirrely. You got your ears on? Hey, boy, Squirrely, this is Shirley. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I heard you talking to that Southside Bushy Trail, and you sound like Hey, Shirley, the handle squirrely. And how about Anno hopping around the stairs? Well, Squirrely, this is Shirley. Are you running barefoot over there? 10-4, Shirley. This is Squirrely. Girl, you know I'm strictly legal on the air. And I just got to see you when the sun goes down. So don't you try to give me no CD runaround. Come on, Shirley, talk to Squirrely. I can't wait to eyeball you around. Shirley, girl, I think I'm going nuts over you. And if you go team 7, I don't know what I'll do. All I need is just a solid 10-2 from you to be at your 10-20 in an hour or two. How about a radio check? You got a radio check. Am I putting on your meter, Skeeter? I never tell. Breaker. Come on, Breaker. I'm looking for a west iron. But good buddy, I wanted a west iron. Well, I guess it's gonna be one of them days. Hey, Shirley, this is Squirrely. Do you dig what I say? 10-4, Squirrely. This is Shirley. Ooh, I really okay, you bushy-tailed rascal, you. Well, Shirley, get your best fur and fix up your hair. Manicure your fingernails and I'll be right there. Hey, Shirley, tonight's so squirrely. It's gonna take you dancing everywhere. And I'm gone. Breaker. Come on now, Breaker. Where I can find a eucalyptus tree. Let's see now. Eucalyptus. Can you spell that for me, please? Sure. Oh, forget it. On the direction to Oak Street. Oh, you don't mind.
This is the CTV Television Network.
Tell a bunch of kids that new Quaker Corn brand cereal has the bran of corn in it, and they'll probably react like this.
I'm not gonna eat it. I'd rather kiss a frog.
On the other hand, just pour some milk over new Quaker Corn brand of corn and oat cereal, and don't say a word.
I love it. Really good. Great. Good stuff. Not bad at all. Super double and
New Quaker Corn brand. Finally, Corn brand and kids have come together.
If you need an economical truck for business, think Toyota, because we know trucks. The diesel, the 3/4 ton, the long bed deluxe, or this standard model with a hefty 1,100-pound payload. Great fuel economy plus tough Toyota dependability. Stop by your Toyota dealer while selection's still good.
You'll find the truck that's just what you need for your fleet, just for fun, or for hopping from job to job.
Oh, what a feeling.
We know trucks.
Toyota.
Fresh squeezed orange juice is the best tasting orange juice. And we believe that fresh squeezed taste makes Minute Maid Concentrate the best tasting brand you can buy. With Minute Maid, you get the delicious taste and the nutrition of fresh squeezed orange juice. Because Minute Maid is all juice and nothing but juice, concentrated from freshly squeezed oranges. After all, how can you improve on fresh squeezed taste and nutrition? Minute Maid, goodness at its best.
The Canadian barbecuer, the most critical, demanding, uncompromising critter that ever grilled a hamburger, has made Kingsford charcoal #1.
All charcoal isn't the same. I want a charcoal that lights fast. Kingsford.
Fast lighting's fine, but I need long-burning charcoal. Kingsford.
Long burning's okay, fast lighting's okay. But I need even heat. Kingsford.
Kingsford, lights fast, burns long, cooks even. Just a few reasons tough critics like you made Kingsford #1.
You are tuned to CFTO TV Channel 9 in Toronto Cable 8.
Harvey Kirk, Lloyd Robertson, with the CTV National News.
I am going to be very, very angry if the camera doesn't work this time. I've done 2 test runs so far, including a private stream. Will the camera work? And do I exist? Yes, I do. And yes, I am doing the hat thing tonight, partially because the lighting when I do these things is right there. So, anyway, yes, welcome to a bit of a by necessity live stream. So, yes, I will do Ask the Archive. It depends on how long it takes me to get through my little ramblings here. But I figured this would be as good a time as any to give some updates and just, say what's going on personally and what's I'm working on for archives. So, yeah, I figured we would just start with that. And yes, invariably I'm going to be looking at my computer screen, so it looks like I'm not even paying attention. But anyway, yes, this week was actually supposed to be the first new episode of the new season. Not that that means much right now, but it's just been kind of a mess lately. So I haven't said anything truly publicly about this, but I mentioned it on Patreon that my mom was supposed to be going in for cataract surgery this week. Both eyes, one on one day, the other eye the next day. But it got held off, so that's next week. But since Mom had already taken the time off of work, if you know what's been going on with me personally, my father has dementia, and that's why I am not producing the way I used to. That's kind of become my main job lately. But anyway, since Mom already had the time off, and my father's affairs are in such horrible disarray, that we've been taking the opportunity to try and just like take care of stuff with. I've mentioned I was a military brat, military brat, something like that. And yeah, so we've been dealing with the VA a lot and just trying to figure out what happened to a lot of his stuff. Car titles and stuff. It's just such a mess lately. So yeah. And it's kind of eaten into, even more so, into my work time. But yeah, I would pick up the camera and take you over, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's kind of a pain in the butt because my camera is on a leash, actually, right now. I always start the season with how I spent my summer episode, and because of what's been going on in the last, certainly the last 8 or 9 months, it's meant having to really lower my sights considerably. So years ago, I put out it's probably the most infamous Ben's junk out there, but it was on the Learn to Solder kit, and I cannot solder to save my life. But I figured that would be my project this year, just to try and just do it a lot. Get a bunch of cheapy kits on Amazon and just have at it and just watch a bunch of tutorials and just work on it. And then that led me down a bit of a rabbit hole. And most of what I know about electronics has been through when I got my ham radio license, almost 10 years ago, and I'm going to have to renew that license next year. So it led me down this kind of rabbit hole that I know what things are, but I don't necessarily know Ohm's law, for example, very well. And so that led me down this rabbit hole of reading, some books on it and trying to learn a little more about schematics, and I still kind of suck at it. But yeah, it's just been one of those things where one thing led to another, and then all the other stuff going on in my personal life that has just made for a lot of headaches. But yes, on that note, I do, speaking of metaphorical headaches, certainly, I do intend to still try and do a record rip-offs this year, but it may very well be the beginning of September before that thing drops. And as it stands, I have such a huge backlog of just general 70s stuff that I think it's going to be a back to basics record rip-offs. The first several were mostly, if not entirely, 70s. So I think that's where I'm going to head with that. So anyway, you may have noticed my box there. I can't necessarily read the comments while I'm talking. But yeah, Bob Newhart passed away earlier today, and I thought it would be only just to have him on the box. And I guess I'll be kind of your psychiatrist once I'm done rambling here for the evening. So yeah, it all kind of fits. But yeah, losing Newhart, even though the man was 94, I think he probably just died of being 94. But it doesn't make it suck any less. He's definitely one of my favorite comedians, and I think he's one of those ones that does have something of an audible influence on Oddity Archive, how I kind of handle box segments and stuff. There's some Bob Newhart, some Jack Benny, and strangely enough, Christine McGlade from You Can't Do That on Television. I think I kind of inherited a bit from her in the way I do things, not necessarily by design. Excuse me. But anyway, yes, hopefully that brings everyone up to date here. and why I'm doing this, and why I'm not doing a public domain theater thing. And speaking of that, the next one, it would have been next week, but everything's pushed back. So I think it's going to be the first week of August. And we'll finish up the summer of Arch Hall Jr., the very short summer, with the really infamous one, EGA. So one of those really, certainly MST3K infamous ones, but by the same token, a movie I can, strangely enough, take just fine completely straight. So anyway, I guess this is the point where I start to hand things over to you and act as, I don't know, your psychiatrist or something, or just answer questions about Archive within reason, of course. Yeah, I'm not giving out like bank account numbers or something. That'd be kind of stupid. So anyway, I do always take super chats, but bear in mind YouTube takes half, and that's not a joke. But tips are certainly appreciated here. So anyway, let's. I realize I'm about 20-30 seconds out of whack with what's going on in the chat here, but if you want to start shooting a few questions at me, and I'll be staring off into the distance. Let's see. First thing I see here is, what's the rarest thing you have? Probably whatever one-offs that I have, like the only known copy of whatever record, or I guess pretty much any off-air recording would be strictly a rarity, wouldn't it? I can't think of anything, strictly speaking, that was manufactured in some really small run. I do have one of Mark Borchart's VHS issues of, not Coven, but Coven is what it should be, but yes, he says Coven. Anyway, and if I miss it, forgive me, maybe just try and shoot it again a little later here, and we'll get things caught up here. Brian Hebert, a guy named Apple on the Apex just bought a large lot of electronic components and doesn't know what to do with them. Your thoughts? I've never heard of that person before. Eric N. Wilson. Ooh, AI chat summary. That's new. That's scary is what it is. Ben, any news on the VR1000? The Great Time Machine? So, I don't know if this is exactly what you're referring to, but my friend Rick, also known as Fuzzy, fuzzymemories.tv, sent me his VR1000, and I've already got one, but the plan was, if it was in better working order than mine, it would become my regular unit. But I've made a video on it, I just haven't edited the thing yet. That was another supposed to be quickie thing to put out, but it just hasn't happened. But the footage exists. He sent me his machine, and he also, for the cost of shipping, and he sent me all the stuff on Great Time Machine VX that needs transferred for fuzzy memories. I didn't realize that he was going to send me 46 tapes. I thought it would be like 12. And of course, this has been in the pipeline forever now. And so before, some of this other stuff got started. So yeah, over time, it may take me several years, but I do have a bunch of VX stuff that you will not be seeing on Annex, but you will be seeing on Fuzzy Memories eventually. But unfortunately, I don't know what he did with his. It's supposedly the unit that he used to post some of his own VX format stuff on Fuzzy Memories on the YouTube channel. But it looks like it had been in storage for quite a long time. And I actually had to pretty much take the thing apart and clean it. And there's an electrical problem with it. But I'll wait for that episode to come out. It'll be like a 8-minute kind of filler thing. Maybe I'll put that out the week of a public domain live stream, just to have something to put out during the day. So anyway, I'm way off base here. I saw a super chat go by. I suppose I should do that. Commodore Fan 64, $3. Thank you, sir. Hardest piece of equipment to get fully working. by my own hand, probably my original VX 1000, VR 1000 rather. And otherwise, it's been kind of stuff that I just don't, I know I'm not qualified to fix. So if it's me sending off one of my open reel units to another Rick Thomas, Obsolete Video down in Arizona to work on. And speaking of those open reel things, actually just behind the camera, I've got a whole box of probably EIAJ tapes. They're not listed, but yeah, I think it's going to be next year, but I think that's going to be the next big cleaning and baking thing. But I generally only do that once a year because it's such a long project. You know, the stuff that I put out on Archive Annex over the summer, that's a solid week's worth of work there. I'm doing great with words tonight. Let's see. James. Ben, did you ever see any of Bob Newhart's bits when he pretended to talk to someone on the phone? Oh yeah, I've got all of Newhart's albums actually, and that is a very large percentage of those albums. And I posted, not necessarily a phone conversation, but one of those styled bits to the Facebook page when I heard that Newhart passed away. And as always, when I'm doing this, the chat is jumping all around. Brian Noblock, am I going to do another vaguely two-parter like the Weather Warnings Y2K episodes from Season 2? Right now, no, because that would mean that I have the time to just work on stuff and just plan, real long-term projects, so probably not. If anything, I fear this year's record ripoffs might be a little sparse. For example, the commercials, those commercial parodies that I do, those are 4 or 5 days of work. Actual days, not me spending 2 or 3 hours after hours working on it. So if I seem a little nervous about this stuff lately. Max Middleshirts, what is the episode that I had the most fun researching? I can't say it was fun, but the rabbit hole ones are always, I get kind of a weird kick out of those, even if they can be very frustrating. So way back with the original pay TV episode and getting into Telefirst and stuff, which is kind of a grail of mine, a Telefirst box. Otherwise, Peter Lemongello certainly sticks out in my mind. Let's see here. What's this? This is just a comment. AI seems to think that record ripoffs was part of Bob's stand-up routines, which tells me we defy summary. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this AI stuff at all. I'll be blunt about it. Let's see here, old radios. How about a Sanyo VTC 8200 unit? I can't even think of what format that is. Let's see, Mike C. I think we're getting close to the end of physical media being produced? No, not really. And especially with the kind of renaissance it's had lately and more it becoming a collector's thing and the resurgence of vinyl and all, I don't foresee physical media going anywhere, much as I think the big corporations would like it to. Ben, my DCC unit isn't functioning again. Mine wasn't functioning in the first place. But I just can't justify $400 to get that thing completely cleaned and recapped. That was what I was quoted when I did that episode back in 2018, I guess, just after I moved here. So yeah, I always have to kind of pick my battles with that stuff. And that's why, getting back on the soldering thing, that is exactly why I've been just trying to knuckle down and make all my mistakes with soldering and just develop some sort of system, some sort of groove, go through all the tutorials I can find and just kind of whittle down some sort of system of my own. Now, that does not mean I'm going to start doing the real serious stuff like the stuff I would send off to Rick Thomas. That is truly his department. But, I've got things as simple as like a radio I picked out on Archive Thrifting a few years back, a shortwave radio that needs transistors and or caps. And that, I think that would be something I'd like to work up to. And speaking of radios, one of the kits I bought was a radio, but I'm saving that for the finale, which may or may not work. And I should note, if I do need to get up, which I might just to show some stuff off, I do have a few extra commercials lurking around that I can just give us a quick commercial break while I move stuff around or get a quick something to drink or something. Anyway, let's see here. JD, out of all the episodes you've done recently, which one was your favorite to make? Probably the most recent full episode, and that would be TV Sign-Offs Volume 2. But that's because that was one of those episodes that was, sometimes I call them crockpot episodes, where you just let it cook forever and ever and ever, and the longer you let it cook, the more tender it gets. But I guess in the realm of archive, maybe the more smelly it gets, or something like that. Something that would be on brand for archive. But yeah, that one was a very, very long time coming, and I kind of knew exactly where I wanted to go with that one. Old radios. What is... Oh, this thing's jumping around on me here. I think it was something about the MeTV... yes, what's my opinion on MeTV Tunes so far? The cable company here is not carrying it. And I don't keep, any kind of antenna rig. The only antenna stuff I've got is my little portable TV, which was intended to be used during blackouts and storms and stuff, but it's like I have to go outside to use it, which kind of negates the point under most conditions. But I don't know if it's being carried here. We do have MeTV, so in theory we have the Tunes channel. But yes, Mid-Continent is, which is effectively Comcast, is not carrying it. And I see a super chat up there. I will get to it. Thank you. As always, I think this is the 6th Ask the Archive I've done over the years. And if you've watched enough of these, you know that I fall very far behind because I just ramble so much. Let's see here. Gino, by the way, Ben gave you a shout out on a video show I was a guest on today talking about classic animation. Mentioned the Invest video episode. Great. Thanks, Gino. I hope you enjoyed the Manos Hands of Fate Blu-ray. And I've been seeing some of your artwork lately, and I think you're doing a great job, man. And I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you. And your westerns, your Six Gun Theater, I'm very proud of you. Let's see here. Let's see here. FCN, I don't know if anybody has asked you this question in the past. Will you ever do an episode on the RDI Halcyon, if you ever plan to cover any more video game stuff? I've never even heard of that. If you've watched Archive long enough, you know that I am not a great gamer person. I mean, I've kind of kicked around the idea of, instead of maybe a movie, some night, just like one time I played Who Shot Johnny Rock on Philips CDI, I believe, and tried to talk my way through that. So that might be kind of what it would be. The only video game thing I've even remotely thought of would be the Laser Active, and I've had a running Fleabase search for that forever, and working ones all seem to fetch in the 4 figures, which just blows my mind. Old radios again. Any plans on a wire recorder or a 3M Revere tape cartridge machine? If I can find it and the price is right. Ronzak Productions. What was the inspiration behind Sergey? So when I did an episode pretty early on numbers stations, I had this theory. There was a station in Russia where it was just playing numbers. It's called the Numbers Station. and sometimes it would play classical music, or maybe two different signals would mix. But I just had this, the number station was traced to some abandoned Russian facility in, I think, the early 80s. I have to rewatch my own episode. But I had this mental image of some bored military guy getting so sick of the numbers that he would just start playing records and play a DJ and be as close to a top 40 DJ as you could get in Russia during the Cold War. And then that became a little mini sketch on the number station episode aforementioned. And it just went from there. So, yeah. Otherwise, Sergey, he's working in my garden, which never grows anything. Dino Fury, would I look at the VCR programmer? I'm not sure what you mean. I did a Ben's junk on the VCR Copilot, the remote control with the dial on it years ago. That's the only thing I can think of. I never did do VCR Plus, at least not in any real depth. I did an episode called VCR or VHS Ephemera, something to that effect, and I think I touched on it there. Let's see here. Mike TV, yeah, 8-track coming back then. As far as manufacturing, I'm assuming that's where you're going. They are. I was actually looking into, there's a record label called Sacred Bones based out of Brooklyn, and they're best known for putting out John Carpenter's music lately, because he played in a progressive rock band before he started making movies, and he's gone back to just making now just kind of instrumental rock and scores for movies that don't exist and stuff. But I was, through them, they were working with a manufacturer that was making vanity runs of 8 tracks again, and I was considering it for the Oddity Archive soundtrack, available at abenmanot.bandcamp.com near you. But the cost per unit, I think, was going to be around $20, and the sale price, like the stuff that Sacred Bones was putting out, was $35, $40. And they even had some Townes Van Zandt, if you're into old kind of country rock singer-songwriters. But yeah, it was one of those things I looked at when I was getting that together. I looked at a vinyl issue, but that album is so long. I think it's 56, 57 minutes, which is a little much to be putting on one LP. It would be even though it would be on brand for archive humor, it would be a K-Tel style deal, and I'd rather it sound decent, and the cost of manufacturing a double album was just not worth it. But yes, there are 8 tracks, new 8 tracks out there, but they're just kind of relegated to vanity runs on little indie labels. Old radios. It's a V-chord unit. Okay, the Sanyo you were referring to. Yeah, I'd like a V-chord unit. Something tells me it'd be as much of a vexation as the VX stuff. Ian Pavelko, apologies if I slaughter any names here. Do I have plans for another insert cable channel here isms? I liked the TBS Network isms episode. Yes, I do. Comedy Central is one that I'd kind of like to do. I would say Nickelodeon, but that's very well trodden. I mean, there are like entire chunks of entire channels on that, so I'm not going to touch that one. But yeah, Comedy Central would be on the list. Maybe TNT, although I feel like the TBS one kind of filled the Turner quota. Others, it would just be me kind of mindlessly ranting like what AMC has devolved into over the years. But yes, I have every intention of making another at some point. Those are good winter episodes. Those are the kind of episodes I can stay at my desk, and kind of hug my warm computer when it's 20 below out in the South Dakota winter, and just kind of sit there and stay kind of cozy and just work on it. Let's see, Winker Dinkles. I should do a record ripoff episode on Hit Records, or a as I'm known to call them. I don't intend on doing an explicit, devoted one. I'm content to just let it appear here and there within episodes. The 60s episode I did a few years back has a good amount of those. Let's see here. Brandon just is. Can't wait for the next recent turkeys video to be half about AI. Future oddities. Yeah, that's when I'd love to be a future oddity. Let's see here. Printo316. Do I like the musician Sufjan Stevens? I always botch that dude's name. If I haven't heard of him, I'd recommend giving him a shot. Yeah, I remember him. He was a big deal when I was in college. I never really got all that into him, but yeah, I remember him at least, circa 2005, 2006. Let's see here. Jesse, Sanyo VTC 8200 is the V-chord format, yep. Incidentally, I set mine to Rick Thomas more than a year ago and paid him more than $1,000 and he hasn't fixed it yet. Yeah, he's not the most efficient guy in the world, is he? You might want to start getting on him for that. I had to get on him for my AV 3600. Gino, Ben, any plans to produce any further episodes centering on public domain video history? Those are my favorites of yours. Probably in some way, some form that I'm not sure of yet. Like last year's Silent Movie Day episode was supposed to be a bit more involved than it really was. And who knows what I'm going to have to settle for this year, or if I do one at all. It's just this has just been an absolute nightmare in every way, shape, or form. But I guess as dementia, progresses, and it has, and that's part of why Mom and I are really trying to get affairs in order for him. We're trying to avoid things like probate down the road. Let's see here. Stupid things jumping around on me again. Ben, do I look forward to 8K TVs coming out in the future? I thought they were already out. My whole thing with this whole expanding resolution thing is the human eye can only process so much. I mean, I think 4K is about as close as you can get to really discerning it, and if it's shot in 4K in the first place. But we've been kind of running up against just what the human eye can process, starting with 1080p. Unless there's something that I'm just really not aware of. Crazy Music Geek, did I ever get big into punk? If so, what bands are my favorites? I've never been a huge punk person, but the old stuff, there's a Ramones little, the 2 CD anthology sits behind me on the bookshelf. And I have a handful of their regular albums too, but just, for a nice quick hit of that. And then otherwise it's kind of artists that got lumped in with punk. I tend to like more the British singer-songwriter punks. Elvis Costello, Graham Parker, Joe Jackson, and Nick Lowe. I love Nick Lowe. So yeah, I've got my favorites of punk. And then some stuff that I don't even consider punk but got lumped in, like Television. I guess Blondie was ostensibly punk-ish early on. And yeah, and I've got some other, of the big ones at least, I got some Sex Pistols kicking around in my collection and stuff too. Let's see here. Brian Hebert, have I considered a Isms episode on Odyssey, the Hallmark and Jim Henson Company co-owned cable channel that became the Hallmark Channel, or one on Noggin for us 2000s folk? I try and avoid the kiddie stuff unless I lived through it. I don't have a great relationship with kids shows in general. As for Odyssey, I've never even heard of that one. Must have been after I stopped watching TV all freaking day. Let's see here. Old radios. I have a suggestion on a Super 8 camera model. Bell & Howell T30XL. Okay. Well, I don't really have any plans on doing any more film stuff in the short term, partially just for cost reasons. I mentioned it in that episode that I did. I think it was $210 combined for film and processing and shipping and all that. When I did that, just that one time for those couple little 50-foot reels. It was just, it was fun to do. And if you want to see that footage, it is on Archive Annex, and most of it's in the episode I did on it if you've never seen that one. And it turned out decently enough for all the problems I had with that stupid camera. Let's see here. Merito, $5 super chat, thank you. The Missing Persons Joanna Lopez stuff from Sign-Offs Volume 2 has finally fulfilled the archive's promise in keeping me up at night. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, it had been kind of a long time since I did kind of a semi-nightmare fuel sort of thing, which was only kind of half intentional. I did that Missing Persons thing just as much to try and dispel these stupid things that I see online, that Joanna Lopez did not exist and all that. No, that's not how that worked. Unfortunately, some youngins have kind of run with their fanfic version of reality back then. The Zenitsu fan, must be an anime thing. What are your thoughts on lost TV broadcasts as a whole, and will I do an episode on it someday? I did an episode called something to the effect of semi-lost TV shows a few years back, and it was me kind of picking and choosing favorites. As far as outright lost stuff, I don't really foresee it. And otherwise, I have some affection for the whole lost media thing as it turns up, and every now and then I'm lucky enough to contribute to it in my own little ways, like the Carol Lawrence show from when I did the episode on random video reel-to-reel stuff, the EIAJ Type 1 stuff. So yeah, I have nothing against it, but I don't foresee a proper episode on it. Let's see. TTP Plumbing and Elevators. Ben, opinion on Video Treasures tapes, if I haven't talked about them yet. Are we thinking of the same company? The ones that did mostly just kind of cheap reissues of things, like EP mode reissues of Canon movies and stuff like that. I don't think the quality is generally very good, and unless it's something that was made specifically for it, like the Rick Wakeman scored copy of Phantom of the Opera, the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera, I generally don't pick that stuff up. I'd rather have, if it's just a reissue of something, I'd rather have an original. Let's see here. Another super chat. Kursoff, $5. Thank you. Let's see here. 2.5 questions. Did I get any farther with the key facts box? No, I haven't touched it since I tried to do the whole remote control thing with it, that British import remote that I got at one point. Otherwise, have I thought of making a second Future Oddities type video? Or maybe retrospective of old network. Well, I've done those retrospectives. Future Oddities eventually. When was the last one? Right at the turn of the decade? So maybe like twice a decade. I guess that would put me about due, wouldn't it? 24 going into 25. Of course, when you're talking about it and actually doing it are two very different things. And that's what I've been running into lately, really running into a wall. Erica Riley, why not order an indoor antenna, Ben? I got a cheap one for less than $10 and it picks up a lot of channels. Well, my problem is that the current Archive HQ sits very, very low. I learned after moving here that this was a slough at one point that got drained and, you know, solidified a bit, but that would explain some of the flooding problems I at least was having when I got here. Thankfully, I've been able to kind of work that stuff out. But yeah, I just don't pick up much in the way of TV stuff here with an antenna. It really makes me wish it was still analog, because at least I could get a snowy picture. But yeah, unfortunately not a thing. Old radios. How about an Edison cylinder phonograph? Ooh, I'd love one. Finding one in decent condition at a decent price, and I wouldn't even know where to begin fixing it. And then I'd wind up having to do what the preservationists do, and kind of, I don't think I could pull it off, trying to fashion some sort of fixed amplifier to it so I could do as close to direct feed of it as possible instead of just miking the horn. Super chat. Round Duck Kira, $1.99. Thank you. Is the archive a form of anti-nostalgia? Sometimes. It varies. There are times when I do archive where it does kind of fall into warm, fuzzy, friendly nostalgia, but other times it's me just kind of plunging the knife in the past. And the great example of that would be the 2 in a row local flavor episodes I did. The last 2 I did before I left Colorado, where one episode was nostalgia and the other was anti-nostalgia. So yeah, I try and look at it as just keeping just a balanced view of things, not let it be all rose-colored glasses stuff. But yeah, admittedly, sometimes I'm guilty of letting archive just be comfort food at times, and then other times it's just absolutely horrible. But, you know, it's about getting the whole perspective. Like, sometimes I'll get kind of comments about, why did you pick up that thing from the NRA, like with the most recent archive thrifting video, I picked up that VHS tape. And it's like, you know, weird ephemera is weird ephemera. I'll take it wherever I can get it. I don't discriminate. Let's see. Oh, here. From the words of BR, the RDI Halcyon was a mega failed game console that released ? Or didn't release. It was going to be a mega technical Laserdisc game system, but it was too expensive to create. Huh, interesting. Of course, you throw the word Laserdisc in there and my ears perk up for some reason. Ronzak Productions. What is my favorite Sergei's Catacomb of Classics volume I've done? Well, of course, Sergei makes those. I don't get much say in those. The Halloween one early on stands out, if only because I was playing real songs on it and paid the price on YouTube. It is the only completely banned one, and I spent so long fighting copyright claims on it that was getting it fully banned, not just content ID marked. I don't care if that happens. But yeah, after like 3 years of just constantly going back and forth on clearing one song and then another getting the thing completely blocked, I just took it down, and it's on archive.org right now. And I do have my own channel on archive.org. It's something to the effect of archive.org/details/oddity archive, something like that. But you should be able to search Oddity Archive and pull up the channel. And I actually posted a little something there this morning with that Showtime break, because I put a cut version on YouTube and then I put the full version with music videos and stuff on archive.org. Featuring a nice deep cut from Irene Cara. Bailey George, after doing a couple episodes on Slim Whitman and the like, what's my true opinion of mid-century country music? I'll take it over today's country music, hands down. I'm one of those people that's a bit freeform with the music. Maybe it's a musician thing. Not that I've picked up my guitar. My poor guitar is sitting right behind the camera. I haven't picked it up since I finished making the archive soundtrack album back in September. Yeah, someday. Where was I? Oh yeah, mid-century country music. Yeah, I'm generally okay with it. I have my favorites of country kind of up through maybe the early 90s, and then it just kind of... when I was growing up, that was the heyday of the Hat Act, the Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, and stuff like that. And I just did not like that stuff as a kid. And it was weird. I thought I hated country music growing up, but at the same time, I liked the Eagles, and there was no shortage of country in that. And I liked all these bands where there was country stuff. My favorite Monkees tunes were usually Michael Nesmith's tunes. And so it's like I was already listening to it, but because it was pegged as rock, I guess I was more open to it. And then just over time, I kind of grew to accept it more and more. But yeah, mid-century stuff is fine for the most part. I absolutely do not like the newer stuff, though. I don't like, what is that, bro country. And my mom leased a new car recently. I'm going to go on a tangent here. And they give you, I guess, 3 months free of Sirius XM. So she punched in country stations, and I was with her, and Dad as well, all of us. And she had it on whatever the hot new country station is. And it was a crunk beat on a country song. I was calling it hick hop, much to my mom's dismay. But yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. Let's see here. A general comment from Ryan Kelly. I think the archive could be considered a form of anti-nostalgia. If by nostalgia you mean old folks waving their fists and saying to themselves, things were so much better back then. I'm reaching that age where I'm starting to say that. Let's see. Gino, heavily enjoyed the Manos Blu-ray. Thank you so much. Yep. You're welcome. I really thought you already had that. I was kind of surprised. Let's see here. Jim Scott, do I remember I did the fan-made sign-off? I've received, rather, my brain's working great. I've received a couple of fan-made ones, viewer-made ones. I have a weird relationship with the word fan. But I remember receiving some, but I'm not sure where you're going with that. Oh, I'm going to totally screw this name up. Doppelpunkt DDD? Greetings, Ben. Since you have many curious non-US viewers, can you explain the TV network affiliate system similar to other history videos you've done? I don't know if it would really be worth it, but here in the States, it's either owned and operated by whatever network, or they just pick up, whatever station's programming. They have some sort of deal going on with it. Unfortunately, there's so few independent stations anymore. I miss the old days. There's my old man yelling at a cloud rant. I miss my old UHF stuff. I miss watching sitcoms in the middle of the day, watching Laverne and Shirley or Barney Miller or something in the middle of the day. Let's see, Stuart H. Between OA episodes 60-something and 80-something, I had some unique thumbnails with art. What's the story with those? Why don't I do those anymore? Yeah, somebody came to me, and I'm totally blanking on his name now. He came to me, I guess, looking to build up his resume, let's put it that way, and offered to start doing thumbnails for me. And even though at the time I was conceiving episodes like 2 months out, I would assign him an episode, a title, what it was about, or if I had an idea for what the thumbnail was. And I wouldn't get him until like after the episode dropped. I'd be kind of stuck making my own usual thumbnails again. And after a while, I just kind of quietly dropped him. Yeah, not that he was getting paid. Again, it was just resume building on his part. But yeah, it just didn't work out. Crazy Music Geek, did I ever get into bands like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, or Minor Threat? Not really. Old radios. Ben, I cannot remember, but did you touch one? Did I touch on the United Network from 1967? I had it in the running. I don't have many abandoned episodes, but one was on like failed fourth networks and stuff. So NTA and stuff like that. Of course, Dumont already had its own episode, and that episode's a slog as far as I'm concerned. And of course, it's one of the all-time most viewed archive episodes. But yeah, it kind of petered out. I just felt like I wasn't getting enough to work on, or I was having to rely too much on speculation in terms of history. And of course, there's so little footage of a lot of those short-lived or never happened networks, obviously. Let's see here. Mike C., any thoughts of doing an episode on pirate radio in the 60s? Not really. I've kind of half touched on pirate radio before, but it's never been a thing. It's such a nebulous topic is part of the problem. It's not like England where they have Radio Caroline, or, well, I mean, Radio Caroline, I guess, is legit now, but that sort of thing. They'd be out on the waters, in international waters, and doing that stuff. Looks like I got a repeat question here. Do I have any thoughts on the new MeTV Tunes channel? Again, I have not seen it. The cable company here is not carrying it. Am I familiar with the works of Mike Patton, Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, etc.? Yeah, I'm familiar enough with Faith No More, certainly. James, do I have any opinions about Walmart On products? I'm asking because that's the 4K 43-inch TV I got recently. The only On stuff I've ever bought, I've got a can of On brand, Walmart brand, one of those cans of compressed air back there. Actually, the tripod that my phone that's acting as my camera is an On, and it's so cheap. But I've never bought any of their electronics, so I can't comment. Will I do an episode on the WB network, the Zenitsu fan? Probably not. I do have memories of it, certainly, though. Unhappily Ever After, anyone? Stuart H., thoughts on the advancement of analog tape capture, such as VHS decode? It's one of those things I've kind of half wanted to experiment with, but there's not enough hours in the day for it, is kind of the problem. Let's see. Rook Talon. Do I still have my ham radio license? How did I learn Morse? Morse has not been a requirement in some time. It might be for the what's that called? Not general class, but the final one. I'm blanking on it right now. I didn't have to learn it. I'm terrible at Morse code. The uber rare occasions I've needed Morse, I've just punched it in online. And back on the soldering thing, I came to the realization that I can't read the bands on a resistor. I never learned how, so at least there's a calculator on there, so I was able to figure out the value of resistors, the ones that I had. Let's see. Boomerang question mark. I assume that means an episode on Boomerang. I barely even remember Boomerang. It seems like it came and went, at least for me personally, in a few months. I'm sure it lasted a lot more. Me and TV kind of parted ways for the most part come 97, 98. Lexi FM, does it really get to 20 below in South Dakota? Yes, it does. I actually, if you dig back through my Twitter stuff back to January, I had a picture of the weather app from one of the TV stations here, a little screenshot, and the high temperature that day I think was 15 below. Yeah, we've had wind chills down to just utterly stupid levels, like 70 below, stuff that I pretty much won't go out if it does get, really bad, or if I do, it's something that just has to be done. And if I need to, with Dad's health, I don't want to take him out, and I can't really leave him at home. But yeah, it gets really bad at times. Round Duck Kira. Maybe covering the kind of content early Nick had would still be interesting. Yeah, possibly early Nick, the mime era, if you really want to go back. Let's see here. Ah, stupid thing. I've never been able to work out the chat jerking around on me when I do these. Now I gotta find my way back. Oh, on that note, when I'm digging around, how about that? Oh yeah. All right, where was I here? Brandon just is. For the Comedy Centralisms, there should be a deep dive into solving the mystery of who the Risk Band was. Yeah, that was an enigma, wasn't it? I'm convinced that it was a PSA, a very awkwardly made PSA for safe sex. Let's see, Ian Pavelko. If I have enough albums to do so, I could do a record ripoffs episode of Twist Cash-In records or even Beatles ripoffs. I've got an episode's worth of Beatles ripoffs. The problem is some of them have been reissued. Like, you wouldn't think of Wincote, W-Y-N-C-O-T-E, being a label to get reissues. They had the Monkey Business, the Monkeys knockoff that I did on one of the record ripoffs episodes. That stuff all got reissued in the last few years. And as such, it becomes a problem with YouTube. Let's see here. Let's see got a super chat here. Commodore Fan 64, thank you. Have I ever gotten into VCD movies? I got a whole bunch of them when I was trying to get together a working Philips CDI, because those could also play VCDs. And the second generation of CDI movies were just VCDs, just labeled differently. And of course, those things play VCDs. So yeah, I built up a certain amount of them. I don't think they're all that great. At their best, I'd say they're about on par with a decent VHS tape. But I've got plenty of them. Will I be doing any more thrifting episodes? Yeah, I think I've got enough footage now for another one. But, yeah, it's just an issue of cutting it together and, writing narration. I can't just wing the narration on those thrifting videos. I've tried it. The first couple were me just trying to wing it, and I was just going crazy because I would get in on some tangent about something, and of course I would have nowhere near enough footage to fill it. So it became a necessity to figure out what footage I want and then write what I have to say about it, and then do I have enough footage to go with it, or can I slow down the footage a bit or whatever. And yeah, so it's just an issue of the doing it at this point. Brian Noblock, any plans when I get to 50,000 subscribers? I have this nasty feeling YouTube isn't going to let me. I've been sitting at like 45,000 for like 4 or 5 years now. I've plateaued horribly. And I've heard of other channels happening too, where it's just like they stop just short of anything that might be considered a milestone, certainly in YouTube's eyes. I don't know, I'd probably just acknowledge it, but I don't think I'd do anything special. Let's see, old radios. Have I ever seen Steve the Amateur Historian's videos on public domain VHS? I can't say I'm familiar with that channel. That's a new one on me. iHeartMax, super chat, thank you. Do I plan to do a video on Scimitar? I had been, but I've been having just a bear of a time trying to find more Scimitar videos. And unbeknownst to me, Found Footage Fest started doing an entire recurring segment on their live streams, their VCR party live streams, on Scimitar. And it's like, well, do I want to keep going down this road? And I don't think anybody's really tried to cobble together a history, but at the same time, I don't know if I could. And I swear Joe told me that he actually worked there briefly, but that just might be me conflating thoughts. Ronzak Productions, how do I convert my records or cassettes? Some point in this year, I managed to get a cassette converter, and only maybe 2 years did I realize my record player could convert audio too. Well, let me simplify that question. On the rack here, that is a Sony CD burner, and that's how I do it. I take my favorite turntable or cassette deck, they're kind of out of the shot here, and just run it into that, and I've always gotten good results with it. Unless I have a contextual reason to not use it, that's how I do it. And I do have a spare one of those in storage too, in case something happens to that one. So for me, it's less an issue of finding some great conversion, because I mean, I owned a Pioneer one of those before, and that was just fine. To me, it's more like, okay, what's either my favorite turntable, for example, or what is going to react best to that record, which is usually my direct drive turntable. I have had to use my old Newmark, my belt-driven one, a couple times in recent years. For one, there was something about the level on it. It was a 12-inch single of Laura Branigan's Self-Control that I was trying to transfer, and then it got reissued like 3 months later. But my direct drive turntable just couldn't handle it. There was something about those really hot levels on a 5-minute 12-inch single that just couldn't take it. And I busted out my old Newmark, and strangely enough, it handled that better. And that turntable also has a weird thing against spoken word. It's strange. But general music stuff, it's good. Someday I'd like to replace that with a restored, like, Technics SL1200, you know, one of the old real workhorse DJ turntables. Jesse, failed streaming services would be a good topic. Remember CISO? No, I don't. I admit I have been terrible with the whole streaming service thing. I had Netflix when I lived in Colorado, and I turned off my subscription when I moved here with the intent of turning it back on, and realized I didn't miss it, so I never turned it back on. Otherwise, it's me like taking something like Shudder and turning it on and off here and there to like watch Joe Bob Briggs's stuff. And yeah, me and streaming have just never quite connected. Most of my streaming, as it were, is on YouTube, actually. Or Amazon. I have Amazon Prime, so you get by turn access to that. Actually, they have a few MST3K episodes up right now for free. And I was using one last night to try and fall asleep. I was having a really nasty case of busy brain. Citron Husky, I hope I got that right. Have I ever considered doing an episode on cassettes from Kmart and other local stores that were used in the 80s and 90s for specific product advertisements in the store? Okay. I've seen that stuff online in recent years. Somebody kind of made an archive of sorts of it. But yeah, I hadn't really planned on it. I'm not sure what there would be to say about it. I do have, I did a Ben's Junk years ago on 8-tracks, oddball 8-tracks, quadraphonic 8-tracks and stuff. But it's a big cart, big 8-track styled cart that was used in some store. I found it at a thrift store, even though I knew I'd never be able to play it in a million years. And it's just kind of like 80s AOR stuff, assuming that the label is right. But yeah, that's as close as I've gotten. I've never gotten into like attention shoppers, that sort of stuff, any of the pre-cooked stuff here. Let's see here. Richard the Fox, ever thought of doing an episode that is about foreign oddities, such as Japanese tech oddities, sort of like the episode you did on British computer oddities? Probably not. It would have to be something that would be kind of, I guess, unique to that country. Like with the British stuff, I'm assuming you mean when I covered the Domesday Project, that just where it just kind of worked out that it was all British. And so I just made a, kind of the thrust of the episode. I just realized how god-awful my camera angle is here. It's like a German expressionist film back there. Episode on Nick at Night. I guess that would be part of Nickelodeon, and that's already been done. I've seen stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sure Nick at Night still exists, and I've just never watched it because I liked it. I watched it when I was a kid. Strange as it, well, I guess for me it doesn't sound too weird, but yeah, that's where I was watching Welcome Back, Kotter, and Get Smart. That's where I first saw Get Smart as a kid and fell in love with it. Let's see here. Captain Scarlet, here's one for me. I'm sure you've heard of the banana splits, right? Yeah, I have. But me and kids stuff, I just don't like doing kids stuff. It's just not my thing. Obsolete Wave, if I ever got my hands on a 35mm film projector for free, would I start collecting features or sell it off? It would become another weapon in the arsenal, so to speak. It would be just me trying to have another one of as many formats as possible on hand to work with. Of course, Transferant might be interesting because usually it's scans of that stuff. I'd have to do some weird telecine stuff if you're not American. Electronaut, so many channels talk about kids media. I'm glad Ben covers other stuff. Yeah, again, because it's just not my department. I don't know, does that mean I lost my childhood or something? Let's see here. EASCEC, speaking of Odyssey, I should do a segment on Radio Nova, a short-lived top 40 radio station in Dublin, Ireland in the 80s that faced too much trouble. Huh. I'm not sure what I'd do with that. Secret Shopkeep would like to see an episode on Bravo. It was a premium cable channel at one point. That's a good one, actually. I used to like Bravo. That, and there was another one called Trio, which I think I'm pretty sure they were related. And I was watching like indie films on it. Those were some of the first indie art house films I ever saw when I was like 14 or so. And watching Trio was long gone, but watching what Bravo has devolved into, yeah. Yeah, I could lament about that one. I was speaking of Trio, old radios. Do I remember Trio Pop Culture TV from the early 2000s? I loved that channel. Yeah, as I just mentioned, I remember watching, what's it called? Tom Waits was in it, of all people. It's from the early 90s. I'm blanking on it. And then there was another one, he did the soundtrack. It's where I first saw, there's always some rock tied to it. I saw Carney on that channel with Robbie Robertson from the band and Gary Busey. And a weird memory about Trio. On 9/11, by the time it got to be like 5 p.m., I had been just on overload all day from watching local news or CNN or wherever things were getting patched in. It seems like everything got boiled down to 2 or 3 sources and just got piped in on a bunch of stations. And just being so thrilled that Trio was running their usual Laugh-In rerun at 5 o'clock that evening. I was just kind of ready for a little break from all that. And I got in trouble in school at 9/11 because some teachers kept the little TV, if you saw the Cable in the Classroom episode, Channel 1 episode, that little TV I showed in there, that's what we had. And some of the teachers just let us watch the news. And I thought that was the best thing at the time because it was going to be our JFK moment. It was going to be something we were going to remember. And we were probably going to want to see as much of in real time as possible. And some of the teachers were not doing it. They were trying to be business as usual. And I just was, I don't know, I was being a little snot about it or something. In retrospect, I was right, though, in my own defense. James, Soap is my favorite sitcom of all time. What is my opinion of Soap? I love the first couple seasons of Soap. Then it just kind of got a little overly weird and weird for weird's sake and overly convoluted. I guess it was supposed to run like a perfect 5 years, but it got canceled before it got there, and the last season was supposed to be kind of wrapping everything up, but it just never happened. As far as soap parodies go, I'm more of a Mary Hartman sort of guy. And of course, Martin Mull passed away recently, who was on that show towards the end and then did Fernwood Tonight and America Tonight and did a bunch of other great work. Made a bunch of really good kind of half comedy, half singer-songwriter albums during the 70s. I'd been hoping he would make one more album, but that obviously never happened. Speaking of soap, a viewer sent me a U-matic tape he had found in a thrift store, and it is an in-house blooper reel of Soap of I think the second season, or second or third. It's from 79, I believe, but I've never transferred it, and I think if memory serves, it's on the original issue of the Soap DVDs. I'm not sure it's on the Mill Creek one. I've kind of lost my place with some of this classic TV stuff. Susan Altman, am I familiar with Uncle Floyd? Yeah, in New Jersey, yes. I think I referenced him. I did an episode on Video Jukebox and some kind of stuff that was tied to it, and I'm pretty sure Uncle Floyd was referenced. I had to think a minute. I was thinking Count Floyd at first. Joe Flaherty, who we also lost fairly recently, back in, April? Jesse, sorry, I'm too poor to donate, Ben. That's all right. Gino Cuddy. My thoughts on David Ruffin's solo career. If you've ever heard any of it, as you know, I love Ruffin, and to me, his solo career post-Temptations is underrated. I have heard actually very little of it, but I've seen your collection of it on Facebook, and yeah, I should probably seek some of it out. I'm sure some of it's on YouTube to check it out. Gino is also very much our resident Temptations fan / expert. Let's see, Brandon just is, do I like the genre of vaporwave? I think you made a version of Pavand that was slowed down and you described it as vaporwave ? I did a joke version of it when I did episode 200, where I did a very it's barely in a time signature in the first place. It shifts all over. One of those things I didn't realize it was progressive until I actually tried to count it out. But anyway, I think you're referring to the one that opens that episode 200, where it's just this very floating freeform kind of thing. And to me, it just seemed like what the kids call vaporwave. As far as the stuff that is consciously vaporwave, I don't really care much for it. I'd almost rather just hear period stuff that would be considered vaporwave now, or antecedent to, that's a weird use of that word, a precursor to. I'm looking. Papaya Boat. Hey Ben, glad I can make it here right before my battery dies. And I'm sure I'm so far back in the chat that it is dead by now. Hopefully you're near an outlet to plug it in and you got your cable on you. Brandon just is, whenever I watch that anti-nostalgia video, I stay for mahogany knots and leave promptly before the effing clown exercise shows up. But that's the best part. Silly size is the best part. And that, I've mentioned it before, silly size, I really thought that was going to be Happy Hamster levels of infamous, but it just never happened. Go watch local TV anti-nostalgia for that one. Episode 150-ish. I think I left Colorado right at 150, or real close. Mahogany Knots is an even worse version of Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It predates The Room by about 3 years. I don't know, maybe, maybe Wiseau saw it? That'd be weird. Papaya Boat, imagine a CED game. Boy, have I got news for you. I did a thing called Mystery Disc when I did an episode, something to the effect of Laserdisc games. And there is a CED issue of Mystery Disc out there, but I've never picked it up. Yeah, it would be one giant glitch. Obsolete Wave, what are my thoughts on the most recent Internet Archive lawsuit judgment? I'm not sure I've heard of the judgment. I've heard of lawsuits. I do like Internet Archive in that it's a place to put things that you're just not going to get away with on YouTube. But there's a lot of people that abuse it, and they, excuse me, just put major movies and stuff that they really shouldn't. But in my mind, it's a good place for news programs that maybe were using hit songs incidentally as part of it, and it's getting blocked on YouTube. I used it to post a Showtime break, like I said earlier, and yeah, it's a good cultural repository. I don't like it when I see it get messed with. As far as I'm concerned, if it's that big a deal, just write a DMCA, make a claim, they'll take it down. I've had somebody was posting Oddity Archive stuff for no reason to archive.org at one point, and I wound up having to get some of it taken down just for it had no reason to be there. It was already readily available elsewhere. I know that sounds really dickish on my part, but it was becoming an issue. But that was years ago. That was like 8 to 10 years ago. Let's see here. Jen, have I thought about doing more videos showing how to use / maintain old electronics media? It might be a good resource for those of us who don't know. I don't know if I really want to. I hate doing how-tos in general because it always becomes, for one, a big argument, and there's always going to be somebody who has devoted their whole life to it who really should be making a video of their own on it, and they don't. So I'm hesitant to do stuff like that. Just it always seems to backfire on me when I do that. When I do, it's more, okay, here's how I handle it. Your mileage may vary. You can agree or disagree with me all day. And media storage and all that is something that can be a bit contentious, I've noticed, which just seems like such a strange thing to say, but yeah. Printo316, Ben, have I seen Showgirls? Yeah, I did, and I was probably too young to be seeing it. I'm pretty sure I saw it like a year after it came out. Don't remember much about it. I remember being actually kind of bored by it, but not much about the plot, or was there a plot? James, what is my favorite scary movie? Showgirls, absolutely frightening. Yeah, if I remembered it, it might be so bland. I've blocked it from my mind. Maybe it was that scary. My favorite, like, it's weird. I consider Pink Floyd The Wall, the movie version of The Wall, to be scarier than most horror movies. It's such a blunt look into mental illness that to me, it hits harder than a lot of, intentionally scary movies, where they really set out to freak you out. Otherwise, some of the standbys, even though the plot doesn't make sense, it's style over substance. I like Suspiria. Yeah. I've got my favorites. Tales from the Quaded Zone, a true horror classic from the Chicago ghetto. Yeah, I was kicking myself when that was out on DVD a few years ago. I would have snapped that up in a second, but I didn't hear about it till after it had sold out. Digging through here. EASCEC. Do I remember those teletext channels when I was a kid? Like one of those public access channels that show random local stuff while some radio station plays in the background. Oh yeah, we actually still have a government access channel like that around here that half the time is just a bulletin board, although it's a good bit slicker these days. I seem to remember mentioning that way back on like Format Wars, as far back as that, the original one back in 2012. Yeah, I like the old ones. To me, there's a charm to the real basic ones. I made a joke once in an early episode that it looked like it was made by a Commodore Amiga that had brain damage or something like that. I think that was the original emergency broadcast salute. But yeah, I do have a real soft spot for that. The really old school electronic program guides, yeah. And as I find them, they do get posted to Annex. I do have some of that stuff there. Printo316, do I like the band The Psychedelic Furs? I have one album of theirs and I like it. It's I just never got any others for whatever reason. What's it called? All This and Nothing, something like that. It was the big one from 80, 81, the one with Pretty in Pink and those. Yeah. Erica Riley. Ben, how did I discover the Canadian band Trooper? I remember hearing that Santa Maria song in a Sergei episode. So I have had a very long relationship with You Can't Do That on television. I watched it as a kid. It freaked me the hell out as a kid. And it just stuck with me, and I was always watching it. And when Nick dropped the reruns in 94, I was like, yeah, well, there goes that. And like an idiot, like sometime in the late 90s, I recorded some of those. I really, really wish I hadn't. But anyway, years later, there was more trading going on. I was able to get, and I didn't save it. I tossed it like an idiot at some point. but I accrued not only the complete run of You Can't Do That on Television from 81 to 90, but I got a handful of the original Canada-only, CJOH-only episodes from 79, and they were more like SNL, Saturday Night Live, and they had musical guests and stuff, usually pre-recorded. But that's where I first heard Trooper, and it took a couple listens, but my first thought was, okay, it's like the Canadian Little River Band in one of their harder rocking moments, okay. But then it sank in, and then I got some of their albums. And I see them more up here, perhaps not shockingly, closer to Canada. But yeah, I've never picked any up because they're always trashed. Let's see here. Nintendo 360, longtime fan, first-time responder. I've been a big fan of your channel for a long time, and I've always loved the public access vibe and a lot of the obscure topics you cover. Thank you. And yeah, there is a kind of an unintentional public access vibe to it. I tend to shoot more for like cheap UHF, like 70s, early 80s UHF, but it never quite works. Ben, part of your face is showing, just in case you didn't know. Well, isn't that the great part of a live stream? I mean, it's happened a few times on Archive over the years, be it in live streams or whatever. Brian Noblock, how about an episode on the 70 plus station affiliate switch of 1995? I didn't realize there were that many. But in Denver, we were one of those markets, I guess, as it turns out, if that's anything to go by. And all three of our stations, the major affiliates, CBS, ABC, and NBC, all swapped around. And they made a big deal out of that. They were really beating that drum about, okay, tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever, we are now going to be an NBC station. But yeah, I remember it. I just didn't think it extended beyond us. To me, it's kind of stretched out. Like, I did those tapes from Rochester, New York recently, and they had kind of an affiliate swap happening in 89, I believe, 88, 89. Yeah, here we go with this thing jerking around on me. Oh, I see what happened. It timed out some of my stuff. Oh no, that means I lost some of the chat. Hopefully I didn't miss anything too bad. That stinks. Sorry this is taking so long. Yeah, I think it just jumped on me when I did some sort of refresh on me. Yikes. Okay, well, if you missed a question, you might want to punch it in again if you're still interested in hearing whatever strange brain droppings I have about it. Let's see, Bryce Lozier, have I considered doing an episode about the Time Life compilation albums, Sounds of the 70s, Classic Rock, the Rock and Roll Era, etc.? I don't know what I'd say about them, because they're just normal compilations, and some of them are quite good. I have a duplicate of the singers and songwriters set from years ago that's actually quite good. Like all full album cuts, and the sound quality is real nice. It's not like over compressed or anything. But yeah, I've actually got the Time Life Sounds of the 70s. What's that called? AM Top 20. It's all 1 and 2 hit wonders. Just out of the shot. Let's see, I've already answered that. Do I have any hints on how I spent my summer 11? Yes, it's going to be on me trying to work on soldering and stuff. and fail. I'm still working on it. I really hope it's done next week, because I'm only about halfway done with my kits. Today was a mess with the VA. That took us all day. King Dead, if I'm doing border radio, border TV is also a great one. They used to have a market in Pembina, North Dakota before Canada cracked down on border stations. Yeah, it's something to think about, I suppose. Yeah, I'm thinking like in the old days where it would be geared towards America, like XCTV in Tijuana being geared towards San Diego. Famously on the radio, XERB, home of Wolfman Jack. Running dirty, as it were, and running way beyond what you could ever get away with in America. And if the weather was right at night and, all that, you could hear it in most of the country and all. And once upon a time, you could get American TV stations on Canadian cable. You might still be able to. When I was making the sign-offs episode, I'm sure it made it in the episode. Maybe not, actually. There was one from North Dakota, but it was recorded off of cable in Winnipeg. Printo316, what's the strangest, creepiest website I've ever stumbled upon? Santo Gold, strangely enough. And not the singer Santi Gold. The episode, the infomercials episode, Blood Circus, that's Santo Gold, who passed away a few years ago. He was still alive when I made that episode. But that website is just like this, I don't know if it's still up, but it's this, it hits you with loud random sound effects and stuff left and right, and half of it's misspelled, and it's kind of the ramblings of a madman. That would probably be up there. I'm sure I've come across some others too. Otherwise, it'll be me searching something for archive, researching, and I'll have a lead, and I'll punch in the website, but it's not only been sold, somebody else has bought it and has put on, porn or something. And then I, stumble onto it, and it's like, okay, well, Wayback Machine, here I come. It actually happened on an archive episode, and I even acknowledged it, but I don't remember which one. Nintendo 360, would I ever do another episode of creepy logos, given if there's enough materials, that is? Probably not. I did scary logos and I did cheesy logos, and I feel like I kind of hit all the big ones, and I'm still not really that big a fan of scary logos. That one, it's like it's got some entertaining parts, like in the first half, but it's kind of a mess. Chris Ackridge, any thoughts on C-band satellite backhauls, like off-air wild feed recordings? Is that what you mean? I've got a few. Haven't covered them. I haven't been sure what to do with them. I actually got some beta tapes. If you follow me on Facebook and Twitter, when I found that tape with MST3K on it, an actual Comedy Central airing of it, that has gone sticky, and I need to try and recover that thing somehow. Some of those tapes were wild feed. And incidentally, off the WB, somebody was recording wild feed stuff off the WB in like 1997. King Dead, the Tandy brand would be great for an archive episode. They had consoles and even a whole comic. Wild stuff. I fear I'm not enough of a techie to really get into that. Yeah, the only Radio Shack thing that I'm even sort of intimately familiar with is my Moog MG1, which is actually just out of the shot, which I haven't touched in a year. Let's see here. James Borland. Favorite Nicktoon and favorite Cartoon Network show? Favorite Nicktoon, Ren and Stimpy. I was all about Ren and Stimpy when that was new. And which is kind of strange. For all the stuff that scared me as a kid, I guess that was just me. It would scare me, but it would intrigue me, and I'd keep watching, and I'd finally eventually get into it. So yeah, Ren and Stimpy was the one for me. I'm very much a first generation Nicktoons kid. I never cared much for the original Cartoon Network shows. I guess Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. Mostly I just remember watching Looney Tunes reruns and like Garfield and Friends for a year or two in there early on. I promise I haven't gone dormant. I'm just looking for some comments, questions here. EASCEC. Hey Benny, when is the last time you've seen a please stand by card? I'm sure I've encountered some on YouTube and I just can't think of it. I wish I had some in my own collection. I don't think I do. Let's see, a little nod to Shannon Doherty there. Yeah, she passed away recently. Everybody's just dropping dead this year. Back in 2016, it was the rock and roll rapture. This year, it seems to be kind of the actors' rapture. Let's see, James. Getting back to the soap DVD sets. I heard the Mill Creek versions cut stuff out of the episodes, while the Sony DVDs have the uncut episodes. Good to know. When Amazon was having Prime Day the other day, when I was sitting in a waiting room just kind of playing around on my phone looking for something to do, I was seeing what they had on sale, and it was the Mill Creek soap set, and I was tempted, but it was like, my relationship with Mill Creek is okay for public domain stuff, but licensed stuff, not so much. It's like it's really data compressed. Tookie Dookie, since I mentioned Prime, have I got anything for Prime Day this year? I really couldn't find any decent deals that I couldn't get elsewhere. Incidentally, working on the whole soldering project, I was just tired of blowing smoke from the soldering iron, and I got one of those smoke extractors on Prime Day earlier this week. And I had a gift card from Christmas last year that I'd been kind of sitting on and only using for, stuff for me as opposed to archive. And I finally got the last of the SCTV DVDs that I didn't have. Those were on sale yesterday, or the day before, whenever that was. Brian Hebert, my thoughts on Family Guy. It went downhill. To me, Family Guy has always been kind of about the low-hanging fruit. So I've never really cared for it. Let's see. TTP Plumbing and Elevators. If I'm reading this, I'm 6 minutes back from regular chat, which is probably that much further off now. And there's no timestamps on this either. Yeah, I totally get it, Eric Wilson. Every time Ben stops in the middle of a sentence to check something, I watch to see if he blinks to make sure the stream didn't freeze. But I never need to stop long enough to throw on, one of my fail-safe commercials or something. Super chat, no message, but thank you, Will. Much appreciated. Obsolete Wave, am I ever going to upload Silly Size on Annex? It is there, but it's been Patreon only. I guess someday I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and release it. The thing is that the guy that made it is still around, and he's still somewhat active, and he's still pushing at least a flavor of Silly Size. So I've been reluctant to make that one truly public, but it is there. But By the same token, if you've seen that episode, which you obviously have, you've seen the really screwy parts of that one. King Dead, is there any information on that weird clown local access alert on Emergency Alerts Volume 2? That's I don't remember what it's called, but it's a children's show, some local children's show, and it just happened to be the Halloween episode, and he was dressed as a clown for Halloween. It is not a normal thing for that. Let's see, Papaya Boat. I was wondering if VHS tapes made by cults could be a future topic, but I'm positive YouTube would have a problem with that. Or the cults themselves, and of course, there's always a debate on what is a cult. But when you say a cult to me, I'm thinking like on the business end of things, Amway. I don't think, say, the Jim Jones Brigade was ever going to make anything like that. Of course, that kind of predates it, I suppose. Ronzak Productions. I know you've referenced Pink Floyd in an episode, and in the back masking episode, there's a clip of you holding a Genesis album. One of my favorite progressive rock bands and albums. I don't remember holding a Genesis album in that. I have most of their stuff. I think I'm only missing 2 at this point. As far as Genesis goes, my favorites are Nursery Crime and Foxtrot, and those are right back to back there. Otherwise, ELP, Brain Salad Surgery, has been a favorite of mine forever and ever, and the first ELP album, for that matter. And some of the biggies, like the first King Crimson album, would have to be on there somewhere. So, yeah, I'm kind of blanking on that right now. I know I've got a fair amount of prog in my collection, like 70s. Let's see, Eric Wilson. Since the post-Netflix era of cord cutting seems to be leaning into basic cable style 24/7 streams, is there any one of those that's your go-to for background TV? Again, I'm not a cord cutter, as it were. I still have regular cable, just because it's kind of almost a necessity around here between how low I sit, and even if I were, like, say, way up on a hill, the TV stations, the local stations around here, if you try and pick them up with an antenna, are just atrocious. But yeah, I've never gotten into any of the, like, I assume you mean the package stuff, like Friendly. I don't have that. But yeah, I feel like I kind of saw the future, though, when I did the last Future Oddities episode, getting back to that, where I was saying that eventually it's just going to consolidate and it's going to be, you know, cable packages all over again. And that seems to be the direction we're heading. Brian Hebert, my thoughts on the mid-10s Archie reboot. I'd rather stick with cheesy old Archies than the thing that led up to Riverdale. Like the 60s Archies, Archie and Veronica? I didn't know that ever got rebooted. Let's see. TTP, good lord. TTP Plumbing and Elevators. One more question for Ben. What's the worst public domain company, in my opinion? As far as the companies go, that's a tough one. A lot of them are just kind of mediocre. I don't like Burbank Video because they would add extra music and sound effects to their stuff. I call it Raymond Rohauer syndrome, and I've done an episode on him, where to create a new copyright, to create a derivative work out of a public domain work, they would add, in their case, just arbitrary sound effects to a public domain thing. So I guess for that reason, Burbank Video would be it. King Dead, do I have a similar soft spot for station IDs the way I do for emergency alerts? Not really. They have to be really old, when it was truly like hand-drawn stuff. Lunar Spunk, do I have Spirit? 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus. Alas, I don't, actually. Jay Gibbons, Jen, did I ever tell the Survivor story? The band Survivor? I'm going to assume that's what that's about. So I did a thrifting episode, I think it was the Christmas one last year, where I had found a copy of the first album from the band Survivor, you know, Eye of the Tiger and some of that. And I said that I had a weird story about them, and I guess I'll go ahead and tell it here for the diehards. So I worked in staging and local crew stuff for about a decade, and I was going to work a Survivor concert in 16, I guess it was, and 2 days before the show was to happen, Jimmy Jameson, the final lead singer, the guy that took over for Dave Bickler, the Eye of the Tiger guy, Jimmy Jameson passed away, and their management was being really weird with us. They were not talking to us. They were not doing anything. And so we were forced to act as if there was still going to be a show. And we were kind of like, I was certainly like, you know, without your lead singer, unless he can get Dave Bickler out of retirement, this isn't going to happen. So we had to just kind of wait on pins and needles to see if they were just going to come through and maybe try and do some makeshift show or something. And then finally, just before call for load-in, we finally heard from their management and said, oh yeah, show's off. So that's maybe that's not as weird as you would hope for, but it certainly stands out to have you know, a member of the band die on you just before trying to do a show for them. Old radios. Back in 2022, I found the radio version of the 1974 Hate Hurts You PSA on a random reel-to-reel tape I bought off eBay. Have I found lost media that way? Oh yeah, on reel-to-reel tapes sometimes. I'm pretty sure I've got the only copy of the Ione Rolnick tape, which was on the second random reel-to-reel episode, the Tom Tapes episode. And yeah, I've got some stuff that I would presume is otherwise lost. By the same token, I have posted most of that stuff to Annex, covered it on Archive and all that stuff. A few comments about Trooper. That's how far back I am here. Super chat from Paul Nelson. Thank you. On the foreign EBS segment, did you look for particular countries and not just find anything? Did you find anything from Cold War era Canada? To put it simply, when I did that episode back in 18, it was just what was available. What had been sent to me, what I had found on YouTube. It wasn't me seeking particular countries. It was just, here's what I've got. Wish it were deeper than that. And sure enough, my chat jumped around. Of course, it was easy to read. That super chat was really, really nice there. It helped me find my spot nice and easy. Let's see here. Record Hound. Trooper Hot Shots is a good best of LP, usually cheap up here. So I would assume you're Canadian. That was my first, that Hot Shots compilation on CD, and that is one of the absolute worst freaking sounding CDs I've ever heard. It is like, I have no idea what generation tape that thing is from, and then the levels are just atrocious. Super weak. Usually I'm groaning about over-compressed stuff, but this was the opposite. And I wound up rounding up whatever Trooper albums I could find on CD. The regular albums, at least those were from the original tapes. Not a bad compilation, although some of the songs are edited on that too. Let's see what's next here. Record Hound Ben, what Trooper record are you looking for? I'm in Canada and find them often. Well, I'd like to get up to Canada someday. Obviously, it's not in the cards right now. Actually, I was going to visit my good friend Ben Struens, also known as Classical Gas Emissions, we were going to get together. I was going to go up and visit him because he's just on the other side of the border. If you take Highway 59 up out of Marshall, Minnesota, you can cross right into Canada, and he's just a bit beyond that. But yeah, we were going to get together and go thrifting and hit the record stores in Winnipeg and stuff. And then COVID-19 happened, the border got closed, and yeah, everything just fell apart, and we never got it back together. And he's got some health problems now, unfortunately, so it's just not happening. But someday I would like to get up to Canada and just kind of hit up the bins, get some actual Canadian issue Guess Who albums, a good Canadian copy of Canned Wheat or something. EASCEC, when you were very young, do you remember listening to Casey Kasem or Rick Dees? Casey Kasem, top 40. And I remember distinctly, for whatever strange reason, he came on Saturday morning on 100.3 KIMN in Denver, and we were always working in the yard on Saturday if it was the appropriate time of the year. And I had this boombox that my folks had given me for my birthday, and I would bring it out with me, and that would be on. And it was interesting in that at the time, at least, Kasem was playing the full album cuts of these songs that you generally didn't hear otherwise. So you'd hear, I remember being very young and hearing like Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You, total cheeseball power ballad, but it's much, much longer on the album. It has this whole extra like third of a length of the tune, just kind of vamp that happens, and I actually think it's pretty good, but I never heard it anywhere else but there, and so that stands out to me, hearing songs that were usually chopped up. I know that's kind of an odd comment to make, but I'm the Oddity Archive guy. Richard Jacket, big ups, Ben. Been watching since the early episodes. Here's to many more. Thank you. Let's see here. Grayman Media. Ever consider doing a local affiliate blooper reel from the 1960s through 90s? I kind of have, haven't I? The gag reels episode. I guess those weren't necessarily local, but it seems like I've done blooper stuff. I can't think of any specific stations. Excuse me. I suppose I shouldn't have grabbed a Coke for something to drink. Unless you're thinking of like the BBC Christmas tapes. Electric Retro Flowers. Will I review any more Shoji Tabuchi or Dennis Aw videos? My original question was eaten by the refresh, yeah, unfortunately. There are some more Dennis Aw videos out there, and I have not been able to get my hands on any of them. As for Shoji, I feel like I've kind of covered as much as I can with Shoji, and also he passed away recently, so then it adds a certain level of creepiness to it. But yeah, Shoji's happened twice now. And Dennis Aw got a real good airing in one of the Christmas episodes. But if I ever find more Dennis Aw videos, and again, there are more as it turns out, yeah, it would be in the running, certainly. But they're not Christmas related. They're more just general everyday stuff. So it would be either a VHS vault, if it's riffable, or more of a montage sort of thing. And I'd have to have a bunch of like subject videos to put it with. And let's see here. Fry's Video Archives. Hey. Was just going to lurk here, but I'm popping in to say that it's been 10 years since I began watching ARC. I've been watching since the test card episodes went up in April 2014. Hey, thank you. Axminster 6, am I reading that right? Hey Ben, did you ever see a Vidicraft 1980 product catalog? I found the Vidicraft guy was Jim Carlock and found some stuff on his website using the Wayback Machine. I didn't know there was a dedicated catalog. I did it's called a Tower of Vidicraft. It was a Ben's Junk just last week, I guess. And yeah, didn't know it was a thing. I really don't know much about the company, but I was mentioning that those early ones kind of have this vibe of built in the garage. Let's see, King Dead, that old 90s punk compilation sends me every time. I think I know what you're talking about, that commercial for, supposedly punk rock, and it's all more new wave, and it's also very pop new wave. It's the Cars, and bands like that. And yeah, it's not exactly punk, no matter how loose your definition is. Mike C., thank you, Ben, for all you do. Thank you. Fry's Video Archives. I believe I mentioned something in the Tropical Paradise episode commentary about the worst porn finds, IIRC, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm sure I did. I'd have to re-listen to that one. That episode was just wild. And I mentioned it. I don't remember much about my commentaries, but I do remember saying that early in the archives run, I would have been just cursing my brains out at finding that was a porno reel. And I'd been doing archive long enough by that point that I could just kind of roll with it and enjoy the silliness of it. Let's see, Obsolete Wave. I was watching the Scary Logos episode just yesterday. I never got the fear factor that others apparently did, and I mentioned that in that episode. Yeah, I don't get it. It would have to be really out there. Excuse me. There were a couple of really out there ones. Papaya Boat. Unpopular opinion, Ren and Stimpy was more fitting for MTV. It was on MTV. I remember seeing it next to Beavis and Butthead. They aired on both channels at the same time. I don't know if they were different cuts of the episodes, though. I don't remember them being any different. That was a time for MTV, though. That was Liquid Television and the sketch comedy show that they had, The State, if you remember that one. I'm really dating myself here. And I'll blink to show everyone that I'm still alive. That hopefully your connection hasn't spazzed out. I suppose I could be a total jerk and just do that, but I won't taunt you with that. Let's see. A lot of just general comments here that I'm kind of scrolling through here. Printo316, I was born in 2005. I'm probably the youngest person here. Somebody mentioned they were born in 2010, so I think you've been beat there, old man. Obsolete Wave. I have Tarkus on 8-track, but it jammed in my player. Ouch. But that most prog can't be good on 8-track if it's the real long tracks, because they'd have to fade it out and chop it up for the 4 equal programs. Like Tarkus would have to be split over 2 programs. That would stink. The track. Let's see here. Printo316, have I at least one episode of 13 Reasons Why? I've never even heard of that. That's a new one on me. Do I like Ween? Will Belmont. Not really. I think my reaction was about on par with, speaking of MTV and Beavis and Butthead, I think my reaction was about on par with their reaction, at least the first time that they ran into him. Let's see, Obsolete Wave again. Have I ever listened to Opie and Anthony or Howard Stern or any of the other shock jocks? I've heard them, but I'm not into that stuff. I've never liked morning drive time zoo crew type shows at all. Growing up, I used to listen to 99.5 FM for the reason that they did not have a morning show at all. They would do like news and traffic here and there, but it was otherwise just regular old music during the morning drive. So yeah, I never got into that stuff. And there were a lot of those in Denver back then. Most stations. Let's see here. Ford, what's the weirdest tape I have? Silly Size would have to be up there. I've got a few Betamax tapes of people's ultrasounds. That was interesting. That was about 10 years ago. Oh, stupid thing. The chat jerked on me again. Dang. Okay, I think I got it. See, there's the Shock Jocks bit. Weirdest tape. Okay, here we go. EASCEC. Hey, Benny, should you do an episode on the dying years of television tele-op slides? I don't know what I'd say about them. I don't have the experience for that stuff. Plus, it would be just slides for the episode. That's always a thing with archive. They get very boring when it's just a slideshow, and I hate it when I do a history lesson and half of it's just one big slideshow. But sometimes they have to be. Brian Hebert, Ben, as an old concert setup crew guy, did you work any touring live shows like Monster Jam or Sesame Street Live or Disney on Ice? Obviously I never toured. I was a local guy, but I did Yo Gabba Gabba once. But alas, Biz Markie was not around for that one. That was an interesting show. That was, I was working audio assistant on that, and I had to wrangle all these actors and get their belt packs, their transmitter mic, wireless things. It's all, wireless. And I always liked working shows like that because you could turn on, just on the monitors, at the desk, not for the whole system, and just eavesdrop on the people in these shows. And, it'd be these real cutesy family shows, and 99% of the time, these actors would have the filthiest mouths and minds you could imagine. But yeah, I did do some of that stuff. I did something on Ice. It might have been D Company, keeping on brand, on Ice one year. Just before Christmas. I remember just trying to get through it because I just wanted to go on Christmas vacation. I was coming here to South Dakota to visit, not necessarily this, the current Archive HQ. Gator Girl, hey. Yes, that Survivor story is pretty weird. I almost bought tickets to see Gordon Lightfoot, but he passed away before he would have played that show. Yeah, and that was the thing with Survivor. Maybe I didn't make that clear enough. When Jimmy Jameson died, I think he was 56. And as far as we know, he wasn't ill prior to that. Gordon Lightfoot, I knew that he was going to be going, at some point, because he had not been in very good health. Another thing about MeTV Tunes, that just seems to be a popular thing tonight. R66F. I've mentioned a few times now that my cable company does not carry it. Printo316, would I be interested in making an episode on weather warnings that aired in foreign countries? Well, it kind of sort of happened with the second EBS episode in 2018. If there was enough of it. Brian Hebert. Anyone heard of Cat Stevens? Yeah. When I did the DBX episodes, I had gone on Discogs and I got what I thought was going to be a DBX encoded copy of Teaser and the Firecat, and I got not only a standard copy, but it was just trashed, and I paid like $25 for it. I was able to return it and take care of that, but that was so annoying. I was looking forward to hearing that one, even though I'm not a fan of DBX. Papaya Boat, speaking of lost media, what is your opinion on ulterior motives found in the 1986 adult film Angels of Passion and how the original artist put out a new album of his 80s songs after the search? I am not into adult film at all. Most of what I've seen, it's just what I've encountered on videotapes, what I think are off-air tapes, and it turns out to be somebody's porn stash. And I don't mean mustache. Kyle, hey. Do I know about the blooper involving Charlie Brill pulling down his underpants accidentally during a live taping of One Day at a Time? No, that's a new one on me. Let's see here. Yes, I'll blink my eyes and show that I'm not dead, or that your machine maybe I'll just kind of rock back and forth here. I'm seeing more comments about Casey Kasem. They still run that stuff. There's a station here in Sioux Falls called Sunny. I know there's other Sunnies across the country, but it is a locally owned station here, and it's all 80s and 90s, but it's like 95% 80s, and on weekends they do old Casey Kasem top 40s. And I do, when I can, enjoy hearing them. I always like hearing what's in the lower rungs of the top 40. That seems to be where the real interesting stuff was, during the 80s at least. Let's see, Kyle again. Am I familiar with the early 90s comedy series Rogen's Heroes? Nope. Hogan's Heroes from the 60s, but not that. Let's see, Ethan Alexanian. Hopefully I got that right. Hi, Ben. I'm a longtime viewer who just wanted to thank you for all that you do and the archive have done, that you and the archive have done. You and your hosting style have been a massive influence on me and how I host my own shows. Are you sure you want me to be an influence? I don't think I'm a good influence, but thank you. Thank you nonetheless. Let's see here. Ray Stevens retrospective. No. Not that I have anything against Ray Stevens, but that's a frustrating artist. I'll go on a little rant about Ray Stevens. Talk about an artist who has re-recorded his own catalog so many times, and it's such a bear to find the original hits of his stuff. It is just maddening. Secret Shopkeep. Do I have a favorite product from the late night infomercials? Yeah, it's in the run. I've had it in the running forever, and I'm blanking on the name for it. But it's a pepper spray, and I forget what it's called. I'm totally blanking on it, but it's this very over-the-top kind of almost like something out of Golan Globus from the 80s, those really overwrought action movies. And I wish I could remember what that stuff is called, but it's got a great infomercial. Let's see here. R. Johnson. Ben, have you ever read Mental Hygiene, the book about high school educational films? No, I haven't. That actually sounds kind of interesting. Never heard of it. I've been kind of weaseling my way through, just out of the shot, I got a couple books from the Medved brothers. I had never read the Golden Turkey Awards, the bad movie guides and stuff. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, kind of that, I guess, MST3K sort of mentality. Let's see. Kyle again. Do I know the British jazz funk band Gonzales? No, I don't. Never heard of it. Of them. Let's see here. And blinking my eyes and stuff and showing that I am not being held hostage. Let's see here. Brian Hebert, I have a tape of off-air recordings of Ren and Stimpy from MTV. I used to. I don't know what happened, though. I did find a Beavis and Butthead recording, though. And the songs are already on YouTube. It's got the episode with Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne, Close My Eyes Forever. I forget which particular episode that was. Yeah, and I was too young to be watching Beavis and Butthead, but I did. And that turned me on to a whole lot of bands at a very young age. Oh, let's see here. And the thing just jerked on me again. Bah. Every time I do this, I tell you. Here we go. Okay, I'm back up to speed. I'm just trying to get to the next question or just whatever happens here. Adam from Iowa. Obviously, it would be too costly and take up too much space, but have you ever had an interest in teletype machines? Not deeply. I'd love to see kind of, maybe there is somebody on YouTube that like has one or access to one and just could kind of show it. I don't think stuff comes over the wire anymore though, so I don't know how much demoing could take place. And let's see here. Old radios. How about a 16mm projector? That Kodak pageant you passed up is the best 16mm projector. I've been kind of hearing that, but it just seemed like it was right on the edge of where I'd have trouble with the lamps. 16mm it's on the someday list, but it's not a big priority. It would be kind of like a 35mm, and then trying to figure out a way to process that film. Let's see here. Let's see, it looks like everybody's kind of reacting to my little story about working crew on Yo Gabba Gabba, Gabba Gabba, and that stuff. Printo316, do I like Jim Croce? Yeah, I do. One of the first LPs I owned was You Don't Mess Around with Jim, and I was in middle school, and it was already reasonably worn out, and I played that thing a lot, so much so that I know I've still got it somewhere, but if I took it out and got up real close to the camera with the LP itself, I turned it white. I literally wore out the grooves on that one. And I've got those on CD now. Those have been reissued a few times over the years. Psychic Warhead, do I plan on making another episode on cult classic video distributors? I'd like to. It's a time issue, time and research issue. I'm really having a tough time getting like one regular archive episode a month out anymore. Especially if I need to make a bunch more Ben's Junks and stuff just to try and plug weeks, just stuff I can do quickly and try and buy myself some time to do a normal archive episode. Another thing about MeTV Tunes, it's being, yes, we do have it here in Sioux Falls, but the cable company is not carrying it. The cable companies are only required to do the big stations, you know, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox. As far as sub-channels go, they can pick and choose. We had Antenna TV on our cable system until recently, and not anymore. That was real great. And let's see here. And there goes the freaking chat again. I don't know why it does that every time I do this. Let's see here. I think I've got myself back in line here. Printo316 again. Do I like Stephen King or the movies based off of his books? Here and there, yeah. Carrie is certainly a favorite. I have a soft spot for Maximum Overdrive. I know that's a total cheese-tastic movie, but I like it. And one of the first cassettes I ever bought with my own money was AC/DC, Who Made Who, ostensibly a soundtrack to that movie. Speaking of Maximum Overdrive, there's a cut on the archive soundtrack called Goblin Truck, which that was what I was thinking of when I was doing that, the famous semi with the goblin face on the grill, and the little instrumental cuts that AC/DC did for the movie. Let's see. Kyle again. What are my thoughts on American Movie Classics AMC pre-2002? It was much better back then. It really was. Old man raising my fist again. I liked it when it was more like Turner Classic Movies, when they had real hosts and real movies, and if there were ads, so to speak, it was only between movies. Yeah. Let's see here. And thing just moved on me again. Nintendo Lunchbox. Why do I think the old MST3K fans can't embrace the new seasons with Felicia Day and whatnot? My issue with the newer MST3K stuff has been, for one, everything is obviously overdubbed. So it's not them actually sitting there in the theater and talking back to it. And also, the episodes that I saw of it, they kept reacting to things that hadn't happened on screen yet. And I went back and checked and made sure that things just hadn't gone out of sync, that I wasn't having a weird moment with Netflix. This was back in Colorado. But yeah, my issue was more that it felt very fake, and then again, they were reacting to things that hadn't happened yet. So that was my beef with the newer MST3K. It felt, it just felt wrong. Let's see here. Kind of just general comments here. And sure enough, I'm really trying to keep a light touch on the scroll wheel here. And yeah, I'll prove that I'm not dead and all that. Let's see. EASCEC. Hey, Benny, have you ever been to a drive-in theater before? And when is the last time you've been to one? I've never been to a drive-in. I'd like to. There is one over in Laverne, Minnesota, just over the border. But by the time I'm done, with like Dad for the day, I just don't. I have other things to do here, and I don't want to go anywhere. I definitely don't want to go to Minnesota to watch a movie. And it's like the drive-in equivalent of a dollar movie theater, a mall movie theater. It's stuff from a year or two ago. It's not necessarily classics or anything like that, or cult film. I'd love to go to the Mahoning Drive-In out in Pennsylvania, I believe. But, for their annual kind of VHS-centric thing, but never made it out there. I'd like to someday. I have so many things on my someday list that is just not in the cards right now. Let's see. Nice long name. Gunnier J. Kintgen Animation Studios. What are your opinions on classic cartoon VHS tapes? Like the public domain stuff? It tends to be the same cartoons over and over. I should note that I'm not a big cartoon person. I do have my favorites, but it's not something I've ever gotten deeply into, and there's a reason I've never really covered it on archive. I'm just simply not qualified. Yeah, it seems like I just see the same cartoons over and over again, and usually in varying degrees of decrepitude. And sure enough, this thing is bouncing around on me again. Let's see here. Am I crazy music geek again? Am I into 50s rock and roll guys like Chuck Berry, Elvis, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, and others? Yeah. I've got a certain degree of all those artists kicking around. Fats Domino. Yeah. Kyle, does Nickelodeon still care about their time capsule? That was dug up. I know it was. I read an article about it. They dug it up early, though. But yeah, it was from 1992 when it was dumped in. And yeah, it would have been nice to kind of, I would have had to have been there the first time, but, you know, be there in 92 and then again when they dug it up. Because they were turning the old Nick Studios into what? Something for Blue Man Group? Something to that effect, if memory serves. Yeah. Oh, I hear ya. YouTube needs to get their act together with the skipping in the chat. It's driving me nuts here. Let's see. Obsolete Wave. What's the worst movie theater experience you've ever had? Have you ever seen a film break on screen that wasn't my own 8mm projector, that is? When I was a kid, my family and I obviously went to see Grumpier Old Men, the sequel to Grumpy Old Men, and they put on the film upside down. I'm not joking. Somebody really screwed up, and it was a nice long wait for that to happen. So yeah, I'm old enough to have, you know, been watching actual films in the theater. As far as bad experiences, riff tracks. I love riff tracks, but seeing them in the theater, at least back in Colorado, certainly, it would attract the worst people. And I lamented about this in the episode on theatrical policy trailers, that if people, I'd go to a riff track screening and people thought they were part of the crew and thought they were funnier than the crew, and they'd be sitting there, you know, making real sharp comments like, that guy's ugly, you know, back to the screen, when we're all trying to just let the event happen, which is just a pre-recorded DVR thing, you know, if you're not on the East Coast anyway, which is rather annoying. I think they're actually doing them a few days ahead of time now. So what I do these days is since with the Kickstarters, you know, it's a Kickstarter thing every year now, I will just try and get it, if they're offering a Blu-ray of it, it's a stretch goal every time. And so if they hit it, I'm always in for a Blu-ray copy, and then I can just watch it at home, and knowing that, yeah, it's not live, it's truly nowhere near live, but I don't have to deal with anyone else. And sure enough, I must be catching up because the jerking around isn't as severe yet. Papaya Boat, has Twister 2 come out yet? I heard they were making a new one. When I got my first DVD player, I hooked it up to my stereo, my bedroom stereo, and one of the first movies I owned was the original Twister, which is not a great movie, but the effects were good, and of course, to me, it was just hooking it up to the stereo so I could get, you know, big whooshing sounds around me, I guess. Let's see, I'm getting some repeat questions here. EASCEC, do I have any plans before my release of How I Spent My Summer 11? I just need to get it done. I haven't been able to work on it in a few days now. This paperwork stuff and rescheduling stuff with mom's cataract surgery has really been a problem. Let's see. So the Animation Studios guy again with the long name. Relating to my previous question, what are my favorite cartoons for that matter? I love old Tex Avery cartoons. I love Droopy. I love Bugs Bunny, not necessarily Tex Avery, but yeah, those would be up there. I was a big Garfield kid growing up for something more relatively contemporary. Yeah, so that's kind of it, but I'm not a cartoon connoisseur by any means. Let's see here. Let's see, Axminster 6, would I ever do a Genlock device episode? I need some Genlock gear first. I've never really played with that stuff, worked with it. Kyle, when I go to a restaurant, do I prefer to have a table far away from screaming kids? Oh, you know it. I don't even like going out to eat anymore. Let's see here, and sure enough, it's jumping around again. Let's see here. I think I got it back here. Again, I must be catching up. And when I do catch up, I'll probably call it a night. This has been going on for, according to my computer, 2 hours and 40 minutes now. But hey, you know, it's always cool to just chat for a while, isn't it? Crazy Music Geek, have I ever gotten into autograph collecting? Never. I own a couple of autograph things that just happened to be autographed. The only time I sought an autograph was when Joe Bob Briggs came through here a couple years ago. I did get in line and I had him sign. I have one of his old At the Drive-In books from the 80s. I had him sign that for me. But otherwise, probably because I spent so long doing crew stuff. One, it's unprofessional to do that, and also I've met enough famous people of varying degrees of fame, worked for them, that I guess I'm kind of bitter about it. I don't know what the proper word is, but just invariably I don't want to spend a second longer with them than I have to. That's just been my experience over the years. So yeah, I've never gotten into the whole celeb thing. I went to a con in Denver like 10 years ago, and I met Rob Paulson, the cartoon voice actor, incidentally, Pinky in the Brain. I love Pinky in the Brain. And I just shook his hand and I got to chat with him for a minute or two. That was really cool. Really nice guy. Yeah, I think I'm just about catching up here. Johnny Tong, do I have Superbox? I don't even know what Superbox is. Is that a video game thing? Something about Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm definitely not qualified to answer that one. I've seen a couple of episodes. It was like one of them had George Carlin voicing the tank and one had Ringo Starr. It was weird. Oh, let's see. Oh dear, cartoon questions. EASCEC. Way before Bugs Bunny, do I remember those Buddy cartoons? Those Looney Tunes cartoons starring Buddy. I can't say I can think of those. I'm sure I've seen them somewhere. I do remember Nickelodeon airing Looney Tunes for several years. Brian Hebert, I prefer door dashing these days. I've never done that. I've never door dashed. I've never done Grubhub or any of that stuff. For me, going out to eat, if it's of my own volition, it's going through the drive-thru. I don't have much of a taste for it. And jumping around again. Take a drink every time I say that. Of course, non-alcoholic. Let's see. Yatsuba fan, something to that effect. Favorite pre-90s shows. That would be kind of a long, strange list. But sitcoms, I've mentioned Get Smart is an old favorite of mine, truly favorite. Barney Miller, not a sitcom, but you can't do that on television. And yeah. Somebody mentioning their autographs of Doodles Weaver. Oh, wow. Let's see here. Animation Studios, long name GJK, maybe for short. What made you want to start Oddity Archive in the first place? I've mentioned it in damn near every interview I've ever done. It was being unemployed and kind of revisiting stuff that had kind of freaked me out as a kid, and kind of coming to grips with some of that old stuff that I'd never quite come to grips with yet at the time, 2012. And I got into the Max Headroom incident, and nobody had really tried to piece the narrative together at the time. It's been done many times and better than I have since then. But that's kind of where it all came from. Boredom and an opening in the market, I suppose you could say. First time I've caught you live. Greetings. Yeah. Welcome aboard, if you're still there, depending on how far back I am here. Let's see here. Oh, Superbox. It is Johnny Tong. Superbox is a Chinese cable box that costs $300. All of the channels are free. Okay, I think I've seen those before. Yeah, I'm generally not into that stuff. Do I know who Jim Cornette is? I've heard the name, but I can't place it. Obsolete Wave. Have I ever heard of the NBC show Mr. Smith, the one with the talking orangutan? Oh, what episode was that referenced on? One of the commercials episodes? It's been sort of on archive before. I don't remember. I think it was incidental to something else, but it's been on archive at least briefly. Okay, I think I've caught up. All right. Well, I suppose I'll start to wind things down here then. So thanks everybody for sitting in here. Oh, somebody said wrestling for Jim Cornette. Okay, well, if you've seen the TBS episode, you know that me and wrestling are worlds apart. So anyway, yes, oh, I see another question. Have I seen 50 Shades of Grey? Have you seen episode 100? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start winding it down here. So yes, the plan is next week, how I spent my summer 11, if you can believe that. If I can get these soldering projects together and edit everything. And hopefully I have a quieter weekend. You know, we're heading into the weekend, so things aren't open. So hopefully I can actually get some work done around these parts. But yes, that'll happen. I've got just material all over the place. It's just an issue of finding the time to work on it. It's just, it's a bear. And I suppose I should note that if history is constant with the progression of dementia, you know, with my father, then it's going to get to a point where I might not be putting anything out at all for a while. We seem to be there is no official timeline, but there's a kind of a common thing on the internet about 7 stages, and he is firmly in number 6 right now. So that's part of why we're trying to get everything organized here before we really get into the tight spot, as it were. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I think we had a good long one here. So yeah, next week, how I spent my summer. Following week, EGA. Tune in for EGA, of course. And otherwise, yes, good night, everybody.